Kraus and welcome to another LDRS creative card video. Today I'll be using the new Thankful Flowers Slimline stamp set along with the coordinating dies and the coordinating coloring stencils. So they're a set of 8 stencils, and on the backing you can see the guide for layering and stenciling. So each one is numbered like 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, so you know which go together. And also they have etched outlines of the first layer of that 1A, so it makes it really easy to layer them and position them on your image even if you're not using the coordinating stamp set. So let's get started. I will be stamping my image using a hybrid ink, Raven hybrid ink. I'm using my stamping positioning tool to stamp the image because it's large and I wanted to make sure that I have nice coverage. I'm stamping a couple times with black ink and I'm using the Stampendable tool to make sure that I have nice coverage. I'm stamping a couple times with the Raven ink so it stays dry a little bit longer so I can apply some embossing powder. Usually when I do layering with stencils or coloring with stencils, I like to emboss my image so that black ink stays nice and vibrant and doesn't dull out when I apply inks on top. So now I have my clear embossing powder here. I did two images. I'll save one for later. The first one actually I forgot to apply the anti-static powder tool, so I stamped the second one just in case I had some scattered embossing powder where I didn't want to be. But in both cases, they both embossed beautifully, and the embossing powder stayed only on the wet areas of the ink. So now let's start layering. I'm gonna speed up here and I'm gonna skip some steps so you're not bored watching me ink blending. I'm using the blender brushes from LDRS Creative. So my first layer is Pink Tutu and then I'm going with Lipstick Jungle. And you can see here I'm listing all the colors that I'll be using. So we have Pink Tutu, Lipstick Jungle, then I'll go with Peachy Keen and In Your Face Orange, and I'll finish with Boysenberry Bliss, Grape and Grape Ape, and then add the leaves with Olive Branch and Evergreen. So as I'm adding the second layers, for each layer I kind of wipe off my stencil so it stays nice and clean for the next use. So I'm positioning the stencil here. You can see it's very easy to layer. And then I'll continue ink blending all the colors until I have all the areas colored in. So here I'm removing that last stencil. You can see the image is already colored. I'm going in with the coordinating die. Don't worry about all the ink that's on the end. We'll die cut this and we don't have to worry about it. So by magic of YouTube, my image is die cut. And now I'll cut a panel for a slimline card. I'm cutting it down to 3 1/4 by 8 1/4. So I just wanted to mention, if you don't want to die cut your image, you can mask on the side of the stencils using masking tape or just plain printer paper, so you make sure that you don't transfer ink on your cardstock. So next I wanted to add some interest to my background. I'm using here plum cardstock, so I decided to stamp like tone to tone onto that background to add some more interest. So I'm using the same stamp and I'm using the Grape Ape hybrid ink to add detail on that background. I'm using again my stamp positioning tool and the Stampendable tool to make sure that I get nice impression. I'm just stamping here on that grid paper to make sure that I have good positioning and my images are not overlapping. If they're all overlapping in the middle, it won't be really be noticeable once you add the image on top. I'll turn it around and stamp in that last corner there. I'm adding more ink and again stamping. Okay, so we have that background. We have the image. Now we need a sentiment. So I'm using a black cardstock and I'm using one of the sentiments from the set that says with a grateful heart. So I'm going to stamp with embossing and watermarking here and then emboss in white. Just positioning that. I'm going to stamp a few times to have nice coverage and to make sure that the embossing powder sticks nicely to the cardstock. Okay, I have here a container with the white embossing powder. Usually I keep the embossing powders that I use the most, like white and clear, in a container. So let's heat set that. Okay, I think we're done. And now I'm using the coordinating die to die cut that image. I will die cut a few extras so we can stack them up and add dimension. If you don't have a foam tape, this is the perfect way to add dimension. I'm also die cutting a few of the Thankful Flowers die cuts and also a few more layers to add on the back of that plum panel. I created also a slimline card base using white cardstock. My white cardstock was 7.5 by 8.5 and I scored the 7.5 side at 3.5 mark and fold it in half. So now let's assemble everything together. So I'm adhering those layers together using liquid glue to add dimension to the sentiment. I'm just pressing with the stampable tool to make sure that it's nice and flat. I'll press it again and then I'll put acrylic block on top and let it dry. I'm repeating the same process for the flowers too. And I have two backing for that, and then I have three backings for that main panel that goes onto our slimline card. Okay, so we have all the layers together. Now we can just adhere everything together and we'll be done in just a second. So I'm adding that to the slimline card. I'll add the main image and then add the sentiment. I'm just playing here to see where I want it to go. I was planning originally to go in the center, but I decided to go with a little bit more towards the bottom, and I'm using my T-ruler to make sure that it's straight. I just decided to add one pearl to that pink flower there, and that finishes our card. Thank you so much for watching and stopping by the LDRS Creative YouTube channel. Please also visit our blog for more ideas and more inspiration. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye.